Hello, everyone. I'm Marcello Sala, Head of Stakeholder Engagement at Apis Partners. Welcome to our latest web-based event, Returns with Responsibility, DPO Group's Impact Journey. We hope you have had a chance to follow the recent announcement of the acquisition of DPO Group by Network International, a deal that we are incredibly proud of. In advance of this webinar, we distributed an investment overview 2-pager summarizing our journey with DPO. If you have not yet received this, you can download a copy via our website. Before we get started, I'd like to provide some general information. Firstly, I'd like to confirm that this webinar has been recorded. As a webinar participant, you will be automatically muted throughout. If there are any technical issues you would like assistance with, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen and make sure that your message is directed to the host or panelists, not the audience. We would like this session to be as interactive as possible, and are keen to respond to your questions. To submit a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. With that, I'd like to welcome today's speakers. Matteo Stefanel is co-founder and managing partner at Apis Partners. Matteo's deep global expertise in financial institutions and financial infrastructure spans 25 years, both as an investor and an advisor, across private equity, venture capital, and investment banking. Matteo and I are delighted to welcome Eran Feinstein to today's event. Eran co-founded DPO Group, leading African payment service provider in Kenya in 2006 to help fill the technology gap in enabling quick and easy online bookings for African airlines. The group now serves retailers and the e-commerce, aviation, travel and hospitality, education, and service sectors. I will now turn the webinar over to Matteo and Eran.
Thank you, Marcello. First of all, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on really a wonderful journey that we've had over the past 6 years between Apis and DPO. On a personal line, I will make just a comment. I was extremely uncomfortable hearing for the first time my bio being quoted by somebody else, but I was really relieved to see that when Eran heard his bio, he was equally uncomfortable. So we are both equally human in this respect. You know, memo to the self. Anyway, so delighted to be here. Eran, over to you.
Same. Thanks for everyone which join us, and we will tell you the story and we'll answer the question. And as always, I'm super happy to be next to Matteo, Apis team, and happy to see my team members as part of the participants. So please enjoy.
Likewise. So first of all, we thought we would start today's webinar by giving you the usual boring details that every investment story must have. And in this case, they're far from being boring, but they're still details. They're the details about how many countries DPO was operating in when we invested. It was 8 countries on paper, although in reality, the main real countries were probably 3 or 4 where the operations were of size. By the time we exited the investment, which is very recently, DPO is operating in 21 countries with real presence, serving real communities. In terms of number of merchants, when we first met, and we'll tell you a little bit more about when we first met a little bit later during this webinar, but when we first met, I believe DPO probably had less than 4,000 merchants.
Yeah.
By the time we invested, it was 5,800. And now it's over 60,000 active merchants. And by different measurements, it's even more than that. So huge number of merchants. And then in terms of revenues, I mean, Eran, you've gone from 3 million to 37 million in less than 6 years. So I feel uneasy about talking about your story.
Yeah, it was a super fast growth.
And you know what, Eran, it's amazing. People always forget the element of organic and inorganic contribution. Yes. Looking just at the number of transactions, we'll talk about it later, but we bought more than, I think, 6 or 7 various companies. But actually the bulk of that revenue growth came from organic growth throughout markets. So that's super interesting. And all of this translated in great returns for our limited partners, for the various investors, institutional investors, pension funds, asset managers, as well as developmental financial institutions and banks and insurance companies that invest through our funds. And they had a return of over 5 times on the capital that they invested, and over 50% IRR when we exited to Network International for $291 million. And as I said, these are the boring elements. They're a great story, but they're the boring elements because so much more Eran and I experienced together as the actual non-financial result. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, I think. Perhaps what we can start telling you now is a little bit about the history. And I don't know, Eran, if you want, do you remember the first picture, actually, Eran?
If I remember, I received a phone call from I think it's a guy which worked for a VC. He told me there are 2 serious investors in town. They went to meet a serious banker, and he told them go and meet DPO. And we tried to find it. I was on my way back, I think, from Zanzibar. You on the way back to London. And we met in a, sorry for my language, in a lousy place.
I think we had chicken shawarma that evening. It was evening. I actually took a picture because I had a good feeling about that meeting. So I took a picture of the place. It was a Java cafe at the airport, if I remember correctly.
At the old airport, yeah. The terminal that since then was burned, but yeah.
And we met each other and we had a chicken shawarma together and we thought, there is something here. And so we started discussing a transaction. This is us in our offices in London. And you literally see the whole team actually that eventually was together for 6 years. What was it all good? Were we smiling around? I think you took the picture.
No, I smiled because I couldn't understand even one word from what you guys are saying. Luckily, Ofer was there to help me, my partner. But yes, this is how we started in your old office, I think.
And we're still smiling. It looks like we were still smiling. And eventually we signed the deal, I think actually on the day of our first investor conference, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The very beginning in Milan, that's right. So that's the Instagram picture, although the reality was a tiny little bit different. It was like 35 different copies that we had to sign. And then, of course, it was done. And we were announcing more and more things and the offices. Well, this is how the offices looked like when you first opened them. But this is how they actually looked when we had our first party in your offices.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has been 6 years of hard work, of collaboration, of putting together things. And here, of course, we are sharing just the smiley faces and the human side, but it's been superb. It's been intense. It's been ultra hard work. But you have literally built an enormous company by the end of it. By African standards, by continental standard, you started as one of the online gateways and payment service providers, and you ended up as by far the largest player in Africa. So, go ahead.
No, we are looking at the journey, and I can tell you, to the rest of our people which join us, that for Ofer and myself, it was the first investment DPO, and we from day one we presented very openly our vision, our true beliefs, which was a combination of Africa and payments, and it was, you can't see it in this photo montage, we had no time, but following those meetings, you guys went and brought us more partners. We created a partnership between Apis, Ofer, and myself, and now we created more partnership in the same concept, the same meetings, the same nice places, and to create very, very, very close relationships. So from day one, there was this, a very leveled relationship, and we are very proud of that.
It's true. We were that type of a relationship. We are that type of relationship that welcome new partners over and over. And it's interesting, as you mentioned this, I have so many memories of at once bringing in more people, the early investments, the early transaction, the early mergers, if you will. And of course, always having a very specific vision of what the impact that we wanted to create. It was, of course, financial success, but also on the next page, we can see what we wanted to create in terms of the cashless impact, the cashless impact onto our markets. And the numbers speak for themselves. I don't know if you want to cut them around, but we've...
No, we in my language, we took off vertically.
Yes.
And
I forget you're a pilot, of course. For the people here who don't know, Eran is a pilot and a very serious one.
A former pilot. No, but and we will talk about when we'll discuss culture, because for a group of 12 to 16 team members over a period of 6 years to grow to be a massive group which runs all across the continent, which move from 5 million to 70 million transactions, to grow 5 times in terms of value. That was a massive change, which was involved with a massive culture change. And I know that you and I will speak about it shortly, but a very, very strong impact.
I think we need to maybe bring this back to tangible examples for our audience. When we talk about a payment volume of 5 million going to 70 million, that means that there have been, in 2021, 70 million things purchased, 70 million transactions that have taken place, 70 million trips on an airplane, hotel rooms, or purchases from online retailing, especially important, as we'll hear later, during COVID times. 70 million times people have gone, and thanks to DPO being able to procure and pay for things that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to. And this is $3 billion equivalent. Now, if you understand African economies, you will know that $3 billion is a massive amount of purchases to go through online retailing, which is increasingly important, but it's still at an earlier stage than in many other continents. And the impact on a micro level is enormous. You look at the consumers actually having increased convenience, enhanced security. This is not about going to the market with cash, and accessing e-commerce and the virtual economy, which until recently have been predominantly the preserve of the top layer of society from an economic point of view in the continent. Now, this is no longer the case the more you democratize access to financial services. And this is truly what DPO has been responsible for. It's not just about payments, it's about actually making payments easy, convenient, accessible to a massive amount of the population in the continent. And of course, the macro level is equally tremendous. I mean, you have direct increase in GDP, you have increase in fiscal receipts. And if you think about it, one of the biggest issues of many governments in Africa is they can't collect taxes because so many transactions are done in cash, right? But Eran, you got
collect taxes, take those destinations which heavily based on tourism. So after 2 or 3 years, local government like Zanzibar realized that now millions of dollars every month goes into the market with all these foreigner tourists. They never had such an opportunity because we took local market, connected it to the whole world. So the effect was, as you are right, within the markets, but also to connect those markets to the rest of the world in an easy way.
And I remember Zanzibar is really where it all began, like 10, 12 years ago, however long it was now, I lose the number of years.
Yeah, no, Zanzibar, for example, become like an online market. You sit in the pool and the hotelier in a tiny place sent you an email with a link to pay your bill before you checked out. And that's Zanzibar. It's not, in the Hong Kong or Dubai.
And you've enabled
that. Was,
And you literally enabled that. And I remember the story. It was in Zanzibar that you had the idea and the first trials of the platform.
Our second merchant was in Zanzibar. The first one is in Kenya. The second merchant number 2 was from Zanzibar. Yes.
I remember that. Now, of course, if we want to contextualize all of this, however, how this worked out in the case of DPO, looking at the APIS impact management system, and it is, if you will, our framework, our context, and I don't want to go at greater length than it's necessary about how we approach impact, because I believe that stories are better than just lectures. But we and DPO is a fantastic story, but we've been doing this since the very beginning when we started APIS. And in fact, as we told Eran and Offer at the very beginning when we met, and we explained to them that for us, impact is a crucial component, is a non-negotiable, it's not an add-on, it is an integral part of what we're doing. And we want it to be not an afterthought, an afterthought. We want it to be absolutely crucial and a component, a natural component of how we approach investing. And what do we mean by that? Well, we mean that when we maximize our investments, we maximize for both financial and non-financial outcomes, and we treat them exactly the same way. So we contribute, first of all, we look at what we bring to the companies, and we contribute capital. Undeniably, the capital is from our limited partners and ourselves, of course. And that's something that is often welcome. But as Eran will tell you, it's not like it was difficult to access capital. That wasn't the differentiator. You could get capital from other places. The differentiator ends up being the value addition. And value addition is a big word for simply saying we speak the same language that our entrepreneurs speak. We were able to sit down with Eran and talk about, hey, maybe you shouldn't be a super merchant. Maybe you should actually get this particular setup done under ISO 9001 and do this and that, and et cetera, et cetera. So effectively not have long discussions with managements where they teach us how financial services and financial technologies work, but rather focusing on going forward, on adding value, on sharing with Eran and Offer or our other entrepreneurs what we've observed in other markets. And I remember at the very beginning, actually, Eran, we were talking very often about what we saw in India, what we saw in Nigeria, what we saw in Europe, and sharing those ideas.
I think you don't underestimate that. It's not that you presented. We actually created those integration. Offer myself sat in 3, 4, 5 times in London and other places where you brought other portfolio companies to sit with us and to exchange ideas, and to present. I remember you brought those guys from Bangladesh and from India and other places, which gave us ideas, and that's an added value. And I agree with you that yes, Epis Partners came as an investor, but we never managed this relationship that we call you, hey, Matteo, we need more capital.
Yep.
On the contrary, we need to discuss this opportunity. Maybe we'll give loans to our small merchants. Maybe we launch point of sale. What do you think of that? I can give us some idea. And that's a different level of a relationship.
I agree, and you know, I smile a lot when you talk about these things, because they may sound like dry examples to the rest of the audience, but to me it makes me smile because I remember exactly the conversations and the discussions.
No, it's a different. You know, there's a scenario or sorry, a scene which I always tell it when I speak relationship. Uday, your partner, comes to the headquarters, and I tell him, Uday, please sit with the team. And he goes, and I bring into the room 50 or 60 people, and Uday speaks with them investors' language they never heard of. You know, the operational team. And then he speaks about multiplies, speaks about how you evaluate a company, how you evaluate a payments company. And you know, which operations team member in other company got this opportunity to speak with an investor at this level. And that's the beauty, you know, that we enrich each other. Sometimes in levels you can't plan something like that.
I remember that. I remember that very, very, very well. I also remember the party that we had afterwards, or well, the meal that we had afterwards, but it turned into a little bit of a party. No, you know, this is what we try and bring. This is, and it's from everyone, it's from all the members of the team, from the most junior to the most senior. You hosted one of our team members for months on end, and basically he felt like it was family there. Nick basically has been on the phone with you and any colleagues on 1,000 different transactions. Well, not 1,000, but you know, 5 or 6 for such a long time. We've been, you know, battling and with the outside world, finding ways to solve. So it's been wonderful, and that's the value addition element. And then of course, we, going back to the AIMS system that we apply, the APS Impact Management System, we then look at investments in our specific 5 verticals, payments being a major one, of course, as DPO proves, and we look at routes to impact, such as in the case of payments, for instance, increasing cashless transactions, because that obviously is a tangible route towards an outcome that is financial inclusion. And so the more you increase cashless transaction, the more financial inclusion into the formal financial sector is real, is tangible, the more you deepen the financial sector. Now, of course, if you look at credit or insurance, you can talk about FS affordability, but affordability is also a key consideration for payments, because of course, many merchants, shop owners, have been wary in the past of taking digital payments method because of the fee, of the merchant fee, and so being able to provide the service in an affordable manner ensures its spreading. So,
but not only the fee, you know, security. Those markets, of course, people lived under, or merchants live under the assumption that online payments it's too risky. And we managed to take, you know, I call it a whole generation of merchants, and to explain that cash and online it's much more secure than cash in many elements, many aspects. And we can see merchants which today say no cash. You can use mobile money, you can use card, you can use a bank-to-bank transfer, but there will be no cash anymore. And that's a huge impact on many sectors in our markets.
That's right. It's just been so important to, you touched on risk. It's so important to act on the fraud detection elements. And that is one area where DPO provided the safety and security to merchants that they didn't actually have before.
I remember, forgot his name, but I think the Visa president for Africa came from Dubai to Nairobi. That's the new, we call it the Savannah Silicon, but like the Silicon Valley, because but I will be very modest. We never claim that we created the best solution in the world, that we created a solution that is made in Africa for Africa, and that created a change. Because when a merchant comes to us, they will receive a protection which is developing the same language. And that's a different for a merchants in Malawi, I know, Ghana, Zimbabwe, to speak with a fraud prevention solution from the States. They won't understand each other. It doesn't matter how sophisticated that solution is. And that's another level of impact, that it's a local solution. Kenya Airways, a year and a half ago, decided to remove all their global processors and to move to a local, first time in the history, local processor in Africa to do all their online payments. That's an impact, Matteo.
Absolutely, and you know that was a key impact, and the key outcome, of course, is as we see here, financial inclusion, as I touched on, financial sector deepening, employment and livelihoods. I mean, the level of employment, we'll talk about it in a second, but it's been staggering, as well as the more indirect outcomes. So whether it is economic growth, increased GDP, which of course is not directly measurable, but equal opportunities and strong governance within the company is all measurable. So this has all been applied towards the achievement of the UNDP Sustainable Development Goals, and we see them here in a measurable manner, and it's been provided to our LPs in a measured way, you know, consistently with the recurring view of impact that we have, which cannot be measured, cannot be monitored. At the end of the day, you need to be able to count it, and so we have done this, and the beauty is that it has been done by DPO together with APIS as one entity. Now, I'm smiling a lot because at the same time, I've seen a question that has come in, and I know we've decided to reserve the questions for later, but that question is very good. So thank you, Chris, for asking it. It's tech companies tend to be driven by IQ. Did empathy, EQ, play any role in your success? And I'm smiling so much because Eran is one of the most empathetic people I know, with his team, with his partners. So I can only tell you the answer is yes.
You know, Matteo, and those which works with us, Ofer, myself, knows one thing. I remember the first time I said that, people look at me like I'm crazy. Listen, I feel comfortable to tell you that I use my heart when I take decisions. And I listen, you know, I listen to your emotions, look at your team members. Maybe they had a bad day and maybe they don't do what they need to do, not because they don't like work, because their kid is sick. And, you know, we hear with some tangible example, there is, especially in the headquarters, there is like a procedure. See, there are lots of single moms here. When their kid is sick, they come to me and I give them an advice which doctor is the best doctor to go in town, because I know most of the doctors which took care of my kids. So EQ is part of, you know, part of our DNA.
Absolutely. Now, there are a few more questions coming, and some of them I'll answer as they're in the stream, and others I think we can reserve for later. So perhaps we can reserve the question from Kudakwashe for the end of the session. But the question around, are we able to quantify micro and macro impacts of DPO? I think we can go to the next page and start from one super easy impact to measure. I mean, super impact to measure, super easy to measure impact, apologies. And that is employment. DPO has literally increased employment in the space of 5 years by 6 times. So it has employed over 360 people that were not previously employed. And that's a crucial element, or that, you know, that it has grown from 68 to 425. And the crucial element is that most of the DPO team today, and this is going back to your point about EQ, actually, Eran, and making decisions with the heart, are the same team members that you had in 2016, and people grew within the group.
Especially on the management level, and that's, we are well known when it comes to our top executive and 2-3 layers below, most of our managers are those team members which work with us for years. We barely go outside and bring top managers. So there is a very, very strong program how people can promote themselves and grow within the group.
That's right. And I think it's also very important, although you're not mentioning it, but I will for you. It's very important to remark that actually the majority of the top management, if not the almost totality, is from the countries where they operate.
That's even more. You know, when it comes to that, allow me to disrupt you, because this is one thing that we are super proud. DPO, we are local. You know, 21 countries. In the whole group, you know, after all these years, I consider myself as an African, but in the whole group, we hire only locals. There are no expats in this group. So we have local teams in 21 countries. And that's a unique approach toward these markets.
With tremendous balance, gender balance, I would say also, which I've seen firsthand when hiring. So all in all, I would say, and all of this data is of course available, but I've seen the going back to the decision being taken with the heart. I've seen how good decisions end up producing excellent results. And one good decision, in my opinion, one great decisions that we've done, that we've taken together a number of years back, was to make sure that the employees of DPO, all the way down to as low as we could go, would benefit from the success of DPO. And so the employee stock option, I mean, sorry, you talk about it, because I was super happy when I got your message.
No, but I will be very open. I was super surprised because I was very open. I never dealt with investors or they yourself. And when offer myself came in the early beginning, 2016, that we would like to put in place the ESOP, the program that will share the success. I thought that it won't go through so smoothly. And we agreed jointly that that's the way that our success is the employees' success. And and I won't embarrass anyone, but some of the team members, I can see them as part of the participants here. They actually cried when we gave them the letter. And once again, goes back to the heart. Our people, it's are part of this success. We were not here without them.
Over 400 people out of 425, so over 400 people received direct. Received a check actually as a result of the exit, and for some of these people it was huge. It was years of comp, life-changing, and this is something I'm particularly proud of, happy of, actually is a better word. I was really moved when I read those commentary and those letters and the reactions of people, and that effectively is what it's all about. As far as I'm concerned, this has been the greatest component of the result, the impact that we've had in the communities, in the market that we serve, to our customers, and starting and having the greatest impact at home to our employees, to the people that have helped DPO achieve this success. So if I look at the story, the journey that we've had, it was born well, even though that chicken shawarma wasn't great, I have to say. I literally do remember that.
And you are right.
Yeah, I know my chicken shawarma. No, so it wasn't born very well, but it started with an immediate meeting of minds, and then it continued with hard work, with contributions from all sides, and with real correct intent towards ourselves, towards our employees, towards our merchants, towards our communities, towards our counterparts, and that has produced results for everyone that has been shared all around. So that's, I would say, more or less, that's where we are in terms of the story so far. We're very happy to pick up on any questions that people may have. I think we have answered quite a bit, but super happy to answer more questions.
Yes, we can now open the Q&A section. Again, you can find the Q&A button and you can use that to ask questions. Well, we have here a couple of questions, very, very direct, I would say. One is, where does DPO stand on the climate change movement?
Mm-hmm. You know, it's a very valid and a very it's currently
topical.
Everyone is you know, maybe we won't change the whole world, but I'll give you some examples. First, we are 100% cloud-based. We have no servers. We have no server rooms. DPO, something which I'm super proud from day one, from 2007 or 8, we are paperless and cloud-based. There are no wires in our system, in our headquarters. There are no papers in our headquarters. So
I think you've got the only printer in your office, if I remember correctly, or
not in my office. If they would put one in my office, I will lose it. So
it's not your office, right? I've seen one printer. That's it.
No, I'm very serious. In the DPO headquarters in Nairobi, there are 2 printers. That's it. So yes, maybe once again, we won't affect global. You know, we won't create a global effect, but I feel that we are very responsible.
Yeah, next one, probably I can answer because it's Eran, will you go public soon? Well, they are actually already public because they are part of a Network International, and Network International is listed in UK.
London.
In London, yeah. And then next one is, how was the exit a responsible exit? And please use the Q&A and not the chat button to ask questions. Thank you.
So I can have a stab at the exit being a responsible exit. You know, being responsible is in every aspect of what you do. So it is both in terms of ensuring that you have accountability vis-a-vis your partners and your counterparts, the way you behave throughout the exit. It's in ensuring that the proceeds of the exits are shared both with the capital and the people that provided the support and the work, the hard work required to produce that. And so if I look back at DPO's exit, I think, was this a responsible exit? And I gotta say yes, and maybe even more so than other exits that I've had, certainly in my career, in the sense that in this case, we were thoughtful, we were deliberate about it. We thought, how do we set up the system such that we share the success and, of course, the failures, if that had happened, the success across the capital providers, across the management, across the employees, across the community, and that was definitely achieved. That was without a doubt, as we just told you in the last slide, that was definitely achieved. And then if I think about how was the exit managed vis-a-vis our counterparts, it was done in a fair manner, it was done in a collaborative manner. The negotiations, which are a necessary component of any exits, were managed honestly, directly, fairly, and that to me is part of being responsible. So if I look comprehensively at the exit, it was definitely a responsible exit, and these are the reasons why.
Matteo, I will add from my operational side, no effect on our merchants. Service remain as is, and that was an immediate decision we took from the beginning, that the service will continue as is. The exit will not affect our merchants, and of course will not affect in general the group. The group, DPO Group, remain as is. All employees, not even one employee was requested to step down because of or following this exit.
Yeah, the next one is, how did DPO fare during COVID-19? Does the pandemic mean that impact created lessened? This is a very good question.
Excellent.
I will start because I want also our audience to be also open. We also had tough times, but the beauty is that those tough times we acted as very closely and called for help where we needed help from Matteo and the team. In general, we had lots of different effects of COVID-19. One of them, which is the positive impact, we acted very fast to provide e-com solution for those merchants and consumer which now been forced to sit at home. So you cannot go and do shopping anymore. So go to the small supermarkets, small retailers, give them a quick solution that they can process online. I can tell you that in South Africa, PayFast, which is a DPO group, did a remarkable job providing a quick and a fast solution for all type of merchants in no time. So we acted in many places like first aid service. Other sectors which heavily impacted like travel, tourism, we gave commitment and assurance to those merchants that even if now it's a tough time, when travel will resume, we will be there. And by the way, that's not an easy commitment in our space. So we, one last thing, also impact on our employees. Not even one employee left the group during the pandemic. Some of them stayed at home for 2 or 3 months, but all of them resumed, and we are very proud of that.
There's another very specific question for you, Eran, about DRC. And it's, has the market been favorable and playing safe considering the political atmosphere there?
Yeah. The DRC, it's an important market, important country for us. It's still relative small market within the DPO group. We believe in this market. We recently appointed a new country manager. We always very, very careful in those markets where there's political instability. We highly focus on the private sector and those sectors that can increase the stability. For example, travel, bring business people into the country and bring tourists where it's relevant.
Now there's one for you, Matteo. How was API's approach to managing for impact created? So what's the genesis? I mean,
it's a very long story, and it probably would deserve its own webinar. But let's simply say that it is the result of a number of years of being an impact-focused fund manager investor. As you probably noticed, we whoever asked the question, we do not define ourselves as an impact manager, but we are an impact-focused manager from day one. And this is what I was mentioning at the very beginning in our very first conversation with Eran. We were very transparent about impact mattering as much as financial results do for us. And what that means is that we incorporate our own proprietary impact measurement framework, which we immediately published, actually, I believe I'm trying to remember where we published the article. It's many years ago now, but we immediately published our first iteration of the impact measurement framework and tool in 2015, if I remember correctly. And then we kept on improving it through the years until we reached the current version of AIMS, which I very briefly mentioned earlier. And of course, this is just a very simple explanation of AIMS, what we've seen in this presentation, but behind it, there is a lot more data gathering, data analysis, and of course, feedback to our investors, many of whom, I should say, are specifically impact-focused investors, and all of whom care for the impact that their investing through APIS has on the communities that we serve. I think the crucial element here is about starting from clarity, from a clarity of thought, as I mentioned earlier, on what the impact aspect of the fund's mandate is. And I think unequivocally for us, it's the democratization of financial services, of access to financial services, financial inclusion, deepening of the financial sector in the countries where we operate. From day one element inspired us, and that is the impact that a 1% increase in financial inclusion has on GDP growth in the country where that is measured. If I remember correctly, it was either Bain or BCG that published the original report in maybe about 10 years ago. And it's unbelievable. It's measurable, it's clear cut, and it's undeniably positive. And that's what inspired from the very beginning the idea of having a very specific investment impact thesis and a theory of change, of how we can change the outcomes by having a favorable, a positive impact on our companies and on our constituencies, and then measuring that impact accordingly, and having what I think is pretty rich data on the impact created by our, frankly, investment principles and our theory of change. I hope this makes it clearer, but very happy to have bilaterals on this and go more in detail.
One for you, Eran. How do you see the future with NI? Will partnering with such a big organization change the ethos culture of DPO? It's a tricky one.
No. But it's, we spoke about how we manage the exit, and hours, days, weeks of discussions. And part of the reason we are so happy with this deal, with being part of DNI, because we can identify what, or we can see the future. There are many, again, I won't go into all the details, but both sides, DPO and NI, brings a lot to the other side. DPO, for example, bring e-commerce, will bring direct merchant relationship. We bring Africa, we bring lots of local markets, and I bring us new markets, you know, an opportunity for DPO to launch in UAE, in Jordan, in Egypt, very shortly in KSA. We never had this opportunity before, and it brings us point of sale technology, something that very important for a DPO group. In terms of culture, yes, there will be a change, but we are I would call it a responsible organization. We have very strong culture, and we go into this adventure in a way that we will bring a lot of our culture, and we will take also other culture. You know, we cannot act forever as a small group. We also grow very fast. So we will learn from NI how to manage a corporate, and we will bring NI our innovative culture. So there will be changes, but we are brave and we know how to manage such changes.
And for what it's worth, I happen to know Network International very well for, or at least quite well, at least for the past decade. And I can say it's a great organization. It's a company that has expanded very significantly beyond its origins over the past couple of decades, actually about 15 years. And it's been very successful in incorporating other cultures within its overall architecture. So I have no doubt that between DPO's fast growth and tremendous culture created by Eran, and on the other side, Network International's ability to integrate cultures and to make them part of their own DNA, this will be a very successful story.
Agreed.
A question for both on the sector. How has the payments sector in Africa changed, and what do you think it will look like in the future?
Matteo, who starts?
You go first.
I will go. You know, because for me, and you know, for Ofer, my partner, and all of DPO, this is.
Don't give away too many secrets.
No, on the contrary. I'm sure that after what I will say, you will have lots of calls that will ask you, come and invest more in Africa. First, the payment space in Africa, it's an amazing space, and the future is I think, incredible. Or there's lots of opportunity. There is now payment space. When we started, there was, of course, South Africa, a huge market, very sophisticated. Many parts of Africa, payments are there, but there is no real payment space. Today, the payment space is there. Give 2 or 3 examples how you see it. First, global players. Global players comes to Africa. They want to play in Africa. They're looking for payment solution. They want to be able to approach the consumers. Mobile money, another, mobile money used to be called APM, alternative payment method. The card is alternative payment method. Mobile money become a main payment method, more regulated, more sophisticated, based on APIs. So the payment space goes into the right level where we project that the growth will be a massive growth. So it's definitely the right place.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we're seeing interesting dynamics, but I don't think they're necessarily Africa related only. We're seeing globally an increase of valuations in the payment sector. But as someone highlighted to me yesterday when I was saying the same thing, it's not just in the payment sector. It's globally. We're seeing potentially a new paradigm around valuations coming through, thanks to the very strong liquidity of the past several years, and now the beginning of inflationary pressures, which means that on a nominal basis, you can see valuations continuing growing or being supported by the dynamics. And of course, if you overlay on this what Eran has just touched on, the potential growth, I mean, this is such a huge market, and I'm being inappropriate in defining Africa as a market. Africa is, 25 markets, 30 markets, depending on how you put countries together. It's just enormous with its own dynamics, but the opportunity is massive. So if you overlay global dynamics, liquidity, potential inflationary pressures, the secular trends towards online transactions, the secular trends towards digital transactions, and these are multipliers, one on top of the other. And then you overlay the growth of Africa and the market share dynamics. We think that valuations are, yeah, sure, they're high, but they're probably here to stay or to continue growing, and certainly being supported by the facts.
Yep.
Go ahead.
We have a question about DPO's contribution to financial literacy and bridging the knowledge gap for the SMEs that you target in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, I saw this question, and I just want to say thank you, because straight to the point, we take financial inclusion, information, education very seriously. There's a special program for each merchant we join DPO, how to take them into the payment space, how to explain them how it works. What is the risk? What is the chargeback? What is your rights? What is your consumer rights? Why it's safe? Why it's secure? If you will go into our website and check our blog, you see lots of general information. We participate in forums. We work with some regulators to present what we do. So if you ask my private opinion, that's part of looking into the future, to put those seeds, to share this information, as much as if the merchant will know more, if the consumer will know more, we will see more transaction. Simple as that. Sure. And that's part of our program all the time.
I would just go on the negative side of your statement and say the approach that we've seen in financial services in the past, where financial services providers were sometimes trying to take advantage of the knowledge gap and the ignorance of some some clients to take advantage of them, and whether it was in credit or merchants, it's short-sighted. Not only it's wrong, not only it's morally wrong, of course, but it's also financially wrong. It makes no sense, because as Eran was very correctly exemplifying, you are basically giving away your future. You're not going to grow the sector. You're not going to grow the confidence. You're not going to grow the number of customers. It's silly, frankly. So you have to be committed to increasing financial literacy and bridging the knowledge gap in your markets.
Well, the next one is for you, Matteo. Was the DPO brand name seen as a major asset by ANI, and thus APIs play a part in building brands?
Undeniably. So undeniably to both. So first of all, yes, my view, I mean, you would have to ask I guess, but my view is that DPO, the brand, was seen as a major asset in the acquisition. There are so many markets where today NI simply isn't present, whereas DPO is, and DPO is recognized as a trustworthy brand, touching on the financial literacy and bridging the gap. Merchants know that DPO is a good actor in their markets, and therefore they appreciate the brand. And to me, confidence of your merchants, confidence of your clients is an essential asset that any merchant acquirer or payments processor would want to have in any markets. And if you're buying DPO and having in one fell swoop 21 markets of presence, the brand is crucial, absolutely crucial. You would agree, right, Eran?
I agree. No, and another proof, Matteo, is that NI, I think, took an excellent decision to maintain the DPO brand. That's the program. DPO stays as DPO, and this is the way we approach the markets. And for us, that shows how strong this new relationship is. And I truly believe in our brand.
So do we as APIs play a part in building brands? So I would definitely like to think so, but I think I also know so, in the sense that in our investment portfolio, we have helped management to change brands and I'm going by mental count, I think at least 4 companies. We literally changed the name of the company together with management. We decided, we brainstormed, and I mean, I remember the brainstorming around the little birdie next to DPO, or indeed the DPO name. So,
and we made a change, Matteo. We started 3G Direct Pay, and we changed to Direct Pay Online, and you guys were on board when we did it. We did it together. Yep.
Totally, because we work with you in this case, or with management in general, to understand how can we communicate better what we provide to our customers, to our merchants. And so this has been the case. In South Africa, we have changed the name of another business in payments, as you probably will know, Adumo. We have worked with management again to change Microcred to Baobab, all names that are directed, resonating more with the merchants, with the customers, with the clients. So definitely for us, building brands, super important, and we want to work with management, and we do work with management every time to try and build them.
Well, the next one, it's not very clear to me, probably it's clearer to you. Would APIs green its financing? Matteo, are we greening our financing?
I think we probably are by default, because the investors that we take, they're not banks. So they're not banks that might be working with non-green, non-climate change aware institutions. So the majority are impact-related investors, or developmental financial institutions, or global asset managers, global, in the case where we have banks, global insurers, all of whom have committed to climate change mitigation, to effectively ensuring that their activities do not contribute to non-green activities. So I would say by default, I think we are. It is not something that I have looked at doing in particular, because the parameters are not particularly clear yet on how to do it on the type of investors that we are. I think the question would probably be more appropriate or accurate for borrowers from credit institutions, and that's why the question asks about financing, than investors, so equity investors in our funds. But I think by default the answer is probably yes for the greatest majority. I would need to run the numbers, to be honest, to see whether we have or not.
I can say yes.
Yes.
Well, this is actually the last question. So I want to thank.
And exactly on time. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Considering that there are some Italians in the webinar, we are on time. No, thank you very much, everybody, for attending our webinar today. And Matteo, Eran, if you want to say something.
Of course. I actually don't know if it shows, but I certainly enjoyed myself. I think Eran looks like he enjoyed himself as well. It was really great. You gave us an opportunity today to actually to have this type of chat where the audience was present, but in a funny way, it was almost incidental to our enjoyment. We really just like to chat, and so thank you for joining us for this chat today.
Without being too emotional, I will say thank you for a few people like Nick Small, like Uday, you, Matteo, goes without saying, and to the whole of Apis team. It was an amazing keep. Everyone, Ravi, just Monica, just name it. It was an amazing partnership, all right? And that's the reason we sit here, and we are super proud to present the story, and we will do it each time you will ask us to do it. So thank you, everyone, on behalf of myself, Ofer, and 450 other team members. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.